I'll go on a limb, and I think Cody Simon impresses enough, Taylor Demerson style, but the difference is there's no Buda Baker and Jalen Thompson ahead of Cody Simon at off-ball linebacker. Every game he played at Ohio State, they said en route to the national championship, he looked better and better. He's a player ascending. This is not a player that is, beat up like Jahad Campbell. This is not a player that maxed out his athletic ability. Most people, when you assess the tape, his best football is yet to come. So what do you think about the prospects of him starting week 1 for this team? People are really impressed with this offseason, this draft class. And again, it's caught more people's attention, specifically later in the draft. Chad Reuter, NFL.com, named his top, I think it was his top 10 players or top 9 players that could compete for starting snaps as rookies. It was actually 16. Ranked 3rd overall on that list. How about this? Cody Simon. Here's what Chad had to say about Cody Simon. Round 4, pick 115. Kazir White's contract ran out. He remains unsigned, creating an opening in the Cardinals linebacking corps. Simon can drop into coverage effectively, and he looks like he shot out of a cannon when blitzing the A-gap or coming off the edge. Chad saying, I suspect he'll be a factor on special teams and should be lining up with the ones at some point in the season, if not Bo, for the opener. I agree. I know you're in a different camp and they want to give the veteran the benefit of the doubt. I will make a prediction right now. I think he starts week 1. I think with the amount of veterans that they have added to their front 4 and the fact that their safety room is veteran led and, outside of Will Johnson, I'll go on a limb, and I think Cody Simon impresses enough, Taylor Demerson style, but the difference is there's no Buda Baker and Jalen Thompson ahead of Cody Simon at off-ball linebacker. Every game he played at Ohio State, they said en route to the national championship, he looked better and better. He's a player ascending. This is not a player that is, beat up like Jahad Campbell. This is not a player that maxed out his athletic ability. Most people, when you assess the tape, his best football is yet to come. So what do you think about the prospects of him starting week 1 for this team?
Well, I love your idea of it. It's not something I want to be a wet blanket for. I'm all for a guy going from 4th round pick to being a starting linebacker, wearing the green dot potentially, and just never relinquishing it. But it's one of those positions. It's not like safety. It's not like corner. It's not like edge where you can just work into a rotation. This is a position I think that Cody Simon projects to play that you need to be on the field for the bulk of the game. Like, this is one of the few positions where Jonathan Gannon, Nick Rallis, like these are guys that Kazir White played, if he didn't play 100% of the snaps, he played close to it because he's the one that's barking in the defense from Nick Rallis. I love to see it. I absolutely would, because I think that the skill set translates to the defense, the scheme. I think that obviously he's got the skill, like the versatility you want. I think the pass rush upside is there. I think the coverage is there. I think he was trending at the right time. Like, his best ball was in the college football playoff all the way to the final game where he was the defensive MVP for the Buckeyes. It's just, is he going to get the opportunity? Because I don't think it's going to be like a work share. Like, this is my main concern about it. I don't think it's going to be like Cody Simon and Akeem Davis-Gaither, and they're going to split, 60-40, 50-50, whatever. It's going to be either or with that position. And they gave Akeem Davis-Gaither not a huge contract, but they gave him something that is not
2 years, $11 million.
It's not special teamer money. So where does he fit in? But it's also not enough to where you say you disqualify Cody Simon for this job. And they never went into it like, hey, we're going to go get and draft an off-ball linebacker. I think the opportunity presented itself and now maybe creates competition that, they weren't dead set on creating.
Akeem Davis-Gaither has a cap hit this year of $3.8 million. It's not special team money, but DJ Dallas is making $3 million. And he's, right. I get it. He's a Pro Bowl returner and by all accounts was fine last year, but I don't know, man. Zay Jones making $2.2 million. I think you signed, I agree with you on the surface level. You signed Akeem Davis-Gaither to potentially be in the mix for a starting job and have your next TJ Edwards, Kazir White, right? But That's up to Akeem Davis-Gaither. We have seen Desmond Ridder and veterans that they brought in where we have anointed them, and they have not had good training camps. And they like, who's the wide receiver they added last offseason where it was like, well, this guy's making the team and he's a special teams ace. And remember that vertical receiver they signed? I want to say Chris Jones, but that's
Chris Moore.
Chris Moore. He got cut. He signed a nice deal, and he was a special teams ace. Couldn't make the roster. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen because I think Akeem Davis-Gaither would have to have a disastrous training camp and preseason and not even make the team. But to suggest a kid who was the starting linebacker on the team that won the national championship on the #1 defense in college football, that, by the way, that university is beloved by the Arizona Cardinals brass now, thank God. And he wore the green dot. He called the defense. He was the MVP. To suggest like, and I know you're not doing this, but to suggest like, oh, this guy doesn't have a shot. It's like, no, if anything, this team has shown you, if you go out and earn it in training camp, this is not Trey McBride inactive for his first game under Cliff and Kime. This is a very different regime, and I'm thankful for it. So I think if you ask me right now, I would say it's a coin flip. I honestly believe that because you'll get your first look at him on Friday. If this kid's locked in for training camp, even if you feel like he's got some room to make up in terms of experience, well, how do you get experience in this league? You got to effing play. You can't sit on the sideline. So Cody Simon in September versus where he's at November will be a very different player.
You hope so. And I agree with you. I mean, I think that there's going to be, it's probably going to be the best competition going into training camp.
Exciting
to fight for that job. But it's going to come down to, and does Simon have the ability with kind of a larger gap just because he doesn't have the experience that Akeem Davis-Gaither has just coming from the collegiate level, getting to the pro level. But if it's something that he kind of just takes to, I think Simon has every bit of a chance to get in there and just kind of take it and be their guy for the next couple of years. I mean, like, this is a position that, and Simon is a much well-regarded prospect than TJ Edwards was coming out of Wisconsin. And he was the one that kind of, that did this for Jonathan Gannon's big-time Super Bowl defense with the Philadelphia Eagles and parlayed that into a big-time contract. We see Owen Papo, like, Cody Simon, despite just being a round away from when Owen Papo was drafted in the 5th round and Simon was drafted in the 4th round, is a much more polished prospect for playing the position. Like, I think Papo still has a ways to go as far as just understanding the game. The athletic traits are there, but I think Cody Simon is more of a complete package that gives you more of a plug and play potential there. That absolutely could beat out a guy like Akeem Davis-Gaither. And like, if you have to eat it as far as like the contract, and Akeem Davis-Gaither becomes, primary special teams and then like a glorified Chris Barnes role, that ain't that big of a chunk of change to have to take. And it would be a really good problem to have that you had a 4th round pick just kind of take the reins there on a starting position.
Well, and you said it, like, Chris Barnes had a role, right? He wasn't the starter, but he had to play. I mean, like we saw last year, Mack Wilson Sr. had a concussion, missed at least one game. Cody Simon was a top 10 player at his position coming out of high school. That's how he ended up at Ohio State. He was a team captain. Obviously, it says he had the highest of character, first team all Big Ten. I mean, here's what I'll say, what hurts Akeem Davis-Gaither. And he signed, we're all like, who is that? We have to go read up on him. And again, the Cardinals have done that with Yelda Froldhold, and look how it turned out. So I'm not casting him aside by any stretch of the imagination. But we talk about like buying a stock. It's like, which of these players is ascending? Which of these players, like even NFL.com, their write-up is like, yeah, he's eventually going to start, right? Like in their pre-draft write-up, right? Akeem Davis-Gaither has been a part of some of the worst defenses in the NFL. So much so that Lou Anarumo got his ass fired by the Bengals. Yeah. And he has never been a consistent player on those atrocious Bengal defenses. Now, again, not putting it on him, Gannon and Ross could say, we love his skill set. We can find him a role here. They did it with Mack Wilson Sr. So again, I'm sure the plan is when they signed him, like, come in and he's going to compete. But I do find it interesting. One of the biggest reasons, this is some inside baseball for everybody, is we were like, Bo couldn't make it to the owner meetings this year in Florida. And it was And you could tell when Bo wasn't there, we didn't really have a presence to get information from Jonathan Gannon. And one of the questions that I would have liked to have seen asked by the people who were in attendance, did you sign Akeem Davis Gaither to start for you? Right. Remember, we were pissed off because they were just coming out of free agency and all the attention was on Sweat, rightfully so, Dalvin Tomlinson. But like Akeem Davis Gaither was signed before Dalvin Tomlinson. Was that calculated, or is this a special teamer, or how do you foresee it? I'm sure now in hindsight that they were able to snag this kid at the top of the 4th round. I'm sure they're going to be like, this is an open competition because that's how they roll. So the window to anoint Akeem Davis Gaither as a starter, I think, expired the NFL draft. And also you have to keep in mind, and as much as it pains me to say this because they would never have done this at 16, they did bring in a linebacker for a top 30 visit in Jihad Campbell. So they were never fully married to the idea of, oh yeah, this guy, he's the guy for it. He's the guy. No, he's a guy. He's an option.
He's a guy that's never played 50% of the defensive snaps his entire career. Last year, he maxed out at 47%. And that was, just an absolute atrocious defense under your boy Lou Amadillo.
Horrendous.
And Maruno.
Never. No, those are dark days on this podcast.
Right, they were very dark. I mean, he played 534 snaps. That's a career high. It doubled, his previous high. So it's not saying like, hey, he's got to go. We got Cody Simon's got to go out there and outplay because you're white. This isn't the case. He can go out there and he can, and there's one thing I really think it's going to come down to, Johnny. Like you can look at a lot of the things between Akeem Davis Gaither and Cody Simon and playing teams and, their ability. They're both guys that possess a skill set to get after the passer. Like you saw really good ability. Like they even call Akeem Davis Gaither kind of a hybrid, and Simon, showed it just by his overall pressures and sacks last year. It's going to come down to these two guys who can show some potential in coverage. Who's going to be like, because I think otherwise they're kind of equal. Who's going to be able to be the guy that can go out there and cover and not be a complete liability there?
Give me the guy who at 6'2", 235 pounds, just had one of the more impressive seasons we've seen for an off-ball linebacker at the number 1 program in college football. I don't know what Cody Simon in 10 years, what his resume with the Cardinals is going to look like, but this just tracks with what I've wanted this franchise to do for so long. It's like, hey, the best defense in college football is led by super high character kid who projects to be a starter at the next level. Can you just draft him and start him, please? Like, don't be surprised. I'm being serious for a second. Don't be surprised we open up training camp and he's running with the ones on day one. Like, oh, this is a surprise. If he performs well when they get their hands on him on beginning this week, and then they know, when they know, and they're like, okay, this kid's got it. We might have to eat it in the short term as he gets up to speed, but paying dividends when this team stunk it up in the second half of last year, can he be doing this? Whereas you feel like with Akeem Davis Gaither, it's like, okay, you could talk me into it, Froldholt style, Mac Wilson Sr. style. Or is this another Sean Murphy Bunting, Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols? Because we've got two ends of the spectrum here. I will always lean on the highly accoladed rookie and the unknown. Akeem Davis Gaither, you mentioned it. Less than 50% of the snaps, couldn't force his way onto a defense that was atrocious. That was a laughing stock last year.
Yeah. It's like when they say if you want to keep tabs on Cody Simon and his progress and how the team views him, they did this with like Max Melton last year. Yeah. Like in The Departed, when they say like how do you find out if somebody's an undercover cop? They say they're not a cop. Like when you would say something like, hey, Max Melton had a pretty good game last week, they'd be like, he still has a lot to work on. Like if they're saying like not so nice and becoming things about Cody Simon, they probably like him and they think he's going to be. They're like, he's got a long way to go. He needs to get better in these aspects. If they're talking about more probably the negatives and the positives, they probably love him.
Let's take a look. Can we see that graphic one more time? Because I'd be remiss if I didn't point out number 5 on this list. One, Cameron Scatabo. I was just going to make up a middle name for him, like Cameron Josiah Scatabo, but that would have been disingenuous. Yeah. So good to see Scat's name on a Cardinal adjacent graphic. If those times are fleeting, I'm here for it. I will milk this cow until it's drained, Bo Brock.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing that you actually don't know his true middle name.
Do you know it? Does anybody
A
know
real
it?
fan would.
Yeah, I mean a real ball knower would know it.
You know what I had to do? I had to scrub my memory of all Scatabo highlights and joy when he wasn't a Cardinal.
You
I'm
were
not going
just
to say
listening to
like,
sad music,
yeah,
trying to just get him
I'm
out of
trying
your
to be,
mind.
can I just be healthy? I'm trying to heal, right? Can you guys let me heal? It's like when you have to unfollow your ex on social and block them and, just scrub your account of all photos. That's what I'm doing with Cameron.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt you even more when he calls himself Cameron Nature Boy Scatabo.
Oh my God.
That's
They got a
that's
good
what
one.
his Instagram says. I can't find a true middle name.
He hides it from you. Only tells his close friends.